Hi, studies. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. So I came across this video, and a lot of people are still stitching the video and talking about it. And I really think it's something a lot of people should see, especially the other people, because some of them are very quick to say that they are deconstructing and all that. Well, why deconstructing? They are not even doing the work. So a question was asked: why people who have deconstructed your racism? How did you realize? And a lot of them are sharing their experiences and what made them realize and how they started tackling it and all of that. But one thing I found very it is kind of common among them is that most of the racism is not something they picked from outside. It is from their family, because when you look around their parents, it started from their parents and then started growing, right? And then also I saw this like in a reason. There are also so many reasons why majority of them will never walk out of whiteness. Like I've been saying this, majority of them say they are deconstructing or they have deconstructed and all that. But the people that started that with you, you have not even taken your time to lecture them and talk to them about the danger of racism towards other people or a group of people, right? Because I remember bringing a video of a woman talking about how, I mean, she needs to, like, she is deconstructing, but her family, her parents and siblings are hardcore racists and her friends. And so she is asking, like, she doesn't want to like involve them in the deconstruction. So what are you deconstructing? Let's get into this video.
White people who have deconstructed your racism, how did you realize? Like, what was your stepping stone that made you realize?
Personal experience, which is so not the answer I want to give you, right? Because it's so deeply unfair. It relies on Black people to essentially become laboratories for my learning, and it cannot be the answer because there are too many non-Black people in the world and too few Black people. Which is a big motivator to learn other ways to deconstruct racism and to continue my own anti-racist practice that is sustainable, right? Something I can do without demanding more work from the people who are most affected by racism. And that's a big reason I came here to begin with. I wanted to nurture the community of people who actively believe that we, whites, have to do the work of divesting from racism and helping to dismantle it actively, right? And that's why I've been working on ways to share suppressed histories and education with people who've already taken those steps on their own. Because, we all need that consistent affirmation that we're going to get there, like this can be done. With that said, here's my story because it might be helpful. So I was an Army brat back in the 1900s. I lived mainly on US Army bases in Germany, have a German mom and American dad. And my whole life was on those military bases. And let me tell you something about those, right? So Army bases are mostly white minority spaces. And I think most of us sort of know the socioeconomic realities of how and why that is, right? We all knew where and how the US does its recruiting. For many families, including mine, right, the military was the only feasible way to enter the middle class. And I believe that we all knew that back then. But something that was really nice about growing up that way was that the culture's pretty Black. It meant my friends were pretty Black, my doctors were, my teachers, my hairdressers, my neighbors. And so I got to have a lot of the same experiences that Black children do who get to grow up in Black neighborhoods. For example, I had community moms. It's like if you're playing with your friends outside on the playground or in the streets or on the soccer field, if someone falls down and hurts themselves, you know that you can go to the nearest house or the nearest apartment, and whoever's in there will help you. So you get lots of Band-Aids, lots of Kool-Aid, right, from all the different moms, because all the moms sort of took care of all the kids. Also got yelled at by my fair share of moms, but I think this was probably good for me. Part of that also is that I grew up with a lot of things that I just didn't realize were Black culture. Like more specifically, I didn't realize they were Black Southern working class culture. I just thought they were American, right? Because I didn't know, like I had a German family. I thought everything that wasn't German must be American. I didn't realize that it was also Black. So I grew up doing the Tootsie Roll, really aging myself here. I grew up eating frozen Kool-Aid from styrofoam cups that some guy just like made in his freezer and sold out on the playground. One of my first jobs was in the nursery on the base chapel. And I remember after the Assembly of God services was over, I always got invited to the potluck afterward. And that's how I learned that macaroni and cheese has got to be baked. That's how I learned that cakes come in caramel. That's how I learned that sweet tea is supposed to be so sweet that it hurts your teeth a little bit. That's how I learned how to double Dutch, and I'm surprisingly good turner. You know, and every first name has got a Miss or a Mr. in front of it, regardless of if they're married or not, right? Like, that is just part of it. And I remember one time I missed the bus because I didn't change my analog alarm clock to account for daylight savings time. And as I was standing at the bus stop, realizing like that horrible realization of how am I going to get to school today, an NCO stopped and gave me a ride to base. And it didn't even occur to me to like say no or to ask my parents. Like, I was just like really grateful that she did. I didn't even know her name until I got in that car, right? I just knew her face from around. And that was the way things were there. And then when I was 23, I moved to America, to the South. And I learned that hardly any white people had the experiences that I had. You know, I sort of struggled with friendships for a bit because I didn't understand how white Americans befriended each other in spaces that still had a really strong legacy of segregation. It was just not something that I learned how to do in the spaces that I grew up. And, you know, I got the look from other white people. It's that like racial solidarity look. So for example, I'm in a grocery store and there is a black mom and her kids who are loud, the kids are screaming or whatever. Often there's a white person there who's like locking eyes with me as if to be like, black people, am I right? And for the longest time, I would not pick up on that. I'd be like, why are you looking at me? Like, I don't understand what's happening. It's like so freaking naive, right? And then I saw a lot of racism those first few years. I mean, I still see a lot, but at that time it really shocked me because it burst the bubble that I'd been living in, right? And I came to realize that all of those black military people on the bases in Germany were extending so much freaking kindness and care and inclusion to me, right? Probably in a way that they'd never experienced in white communities. And it was really fucking humbling to know that I took that for granted. And that was my big motivator, really, right? Like, I even shifted to topics in grad school to understand slavery and racism better because I wanted other people to have the epiphany I was having. But also I wanted other people to like be with me while I was still having my epiphany. Like, I needed other people to help me deconstruct what the hell I was experiencing and why and how to stop, right? Like, I wanted to live the way I lived as a child because it was really lovely. And I think that that is possible. Like, I've witnessed it, so it is possible. So it could be possible in other places too. Anyway, that was super long, so if you're still here, I know you're a real one, which means I want to stay in touch with you. Please come find me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, and I'm on Blue Sky. It's all the same username, Dr. Angela Sutton. I might try out Lemonade. I don't know. What do you think? But yeah, I hope I see you on the other side. Oh, I also have a book out called Pirates of the Slave Trade that really helps to explain just how the hell we got to such a racist mess. So check that out if you're interested. The audiobook just dropped as well, so you can listen instead. And I hope to see you.
You know why it's so hard for a lot of white people to admit our complicity and active hand in racism and white supremacy and understand that systemic racism is real? Here's one of the reasons. Because if you as a white person begin to understand and believe that, that means your mom and dad were wrong. Your grandparents were wrong. Your teachers were wrong. Everything you've learned about history is wrong. The shit you've heard about cops is wrong. The entire foundation of this country that you know it to be, that has been taught to you, you will realize you were lied to. Everything you know about the criminal justice system, schools, banks, fucking housing, credit, food deserts, the medical field, the mental health field, you're going to realize everything that you were taught about that shit If you've never addressed white supremacy or racism, you're going to understand internally, if you start to unpack that, all that shit was wrong. You've been lied to. This is why so many white people want to return to this perceived right to comfort, because it creates an internal panic. When you realize your entire fucking foundation was formed and created and uplifted upon lies, white supremacy, white violence, racism, dehumanization, you're going to deconstruct all of that shit if you choose to. And what you're going to be left with is yourself. And then you have to understand, I have to understand, the complicity in the active hand in the role that I carry out in racism, in white supremacy. And instead of saying, holy fuck, dude, I was wrong about everything. Everything was a lie. Everything, race really does play into everything. Instead of doing that, the gut reaction is to push back against people who have the Black, Indigenous, persons of color experience in this country, to push back against them and tell them that they don't know their history, that their life experience is wrong. You see how that's not logical at all? I always say, once you start pulling the string on the sweater, everything will fucking unravel. And that leads to an identity crisis, which will force you back into being comfortable, so you don't have to address yourself, so you don't have to address your family members, so you don't have to address your friends or your churches. Or it will cause you to radically change to a point where you might lose everything, but will find your humanity instead. Choose your humanity. Choose to walk away from whiteness forever.
White people who have deconstructed your racism, how did you realize? Like, what was your step?
So it's still technically in the deconstruction process, because I think because of the way that the systems are built, anyone who is white passing, even though I'm a Cherokee man, it's a lifelong thing, because you're always going to learn something that someone in history used against somebody else that then became commonplace. But being late diagnosed autistic helped, because I grew up just people are people, and you take care of people, and you protect people, and you stand up for what's right. My parents didn't realize that I was autistic, and so when they were telling me you stand up for what's right, I didn't have all of their little societal minutiae of, oh, you stand up for this person if they look like you, or you stand up for this person only if they're behaving this way. I didn't get any of that. And so whenever I, achieved sentience as a teenager, I was like, oh my god, you guys are fucking gross.
White people who have deconstructed your racism, how did you realize?
So, I grew up in a very quietly racist household. They didn't wear sheets. They didn't use the N-word. My dad complained about DEI. Of course, they called it something else back then. It's way too early, and I can't remember what it was called. My mother was more overt about it. And when I say overt, it was very still quiet. She got annoyed when I was watching Sesame Street when I was very little, because the black guy and the Latina had an Asian son, and that's not how genetics work. And there was a couple in our neighborhood who he was white and she was, I believe, Filipino. And she scoffed at that and was like, oh, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to mix. I was very confused. It didn't make sense what she was saying, but I was so little, you don't really understand anything. At my grandparents' house, it was a totally different story. I was not allowed to watch predominantly black casts in TV shows, so no Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, no Cosby Show. And my grandfather very much said the N-word. My grandmother called Brazil nuts N-word toes, and it made me really uncomfortable, and it didn't make any sense to me why they were like that. Affirmative action, that was it. That's the word. My brain's starting to wake up. It's like stupid early in the morning. And then when I hit school, there was this kid. His name was Jacob, and he said to me, "You're so pretty. I'm gonna marry you someday." And I looked at him, and he was Samoan, and I said, "Well, we're not allowed to. We can't do that because we're different and we can't mix." And all of the kids around me went, "Oh, that's racist. How could you say that?" And I'm just like, I don't know what racism is. We are taught very subvertly to keep ourselves away from each other, from anyone who's different. And then in junior high, I started to sneaky rebel. My best friend was Latina, and when I got to high school, I got set up on a blind date with this guy who was black, and when he knocked on my door, my mother pitched a fit, and I said, "Well, it's a blind date. Get what you get, right?" And I left. And we had a good time. He was much older than I and wanted more things in life than I was ready to give. When I hit college, I rebelled hard. I became friends with LGBTQIA people. I went on dates with everyone and anyone that was willing to date me. It didn't matter if they were male, female, white, not white, didn't care. I had a good time and I enjoyed my life. And now it is my job as a mom to look at my children and say, you love who you love, and you care for the people around you, whether they look like you, think like you, worship like you. It doesn't matter, because we are supposed to be different. The world is supposed to have variety and beauty, and none of this "we don't mix" bullshit.
White people who have deconstructed your racism, how did you realize? What was your...
By also experiencing racism. I'm Romanian, but I was raised in Italy for 10 plus years, and racism is alive and well in Europe. I've seen the looks, I heard the comments, I have seen them change their mood or quickly switch subject when you approach. And the worst would be when they wouldn't realize that, you are something else than just Italian, and they would talk as if you're one of their own. There's a level of dehumanization at play here that just strips more and more away from you each day with each interaction that is like that. And I think once you have felt that, it's very hard to do it to someone else. And please don't get me wrong, I love Italy and I still consider it basically my home country to a point. It's the first language I've ever studied, it's the first place I ever had friends. But I have to say that there was a clear difference between how I was treated and how my parents were treated.
White people who have deconstructed your racism, how did you realize? What was your step?
My best friend growing up was black, and I thought that meant that I can't be racist if my best friend is black. And it took me until I had a kid. And I live in a pretty diverse area. And I realized, I have to actually make sure that my kid does not be racist. I have to directly teach this. And it made me think about, maybe I have some learning to do. That's where it came from.
So this is all I got from this video, and I don't know why, but I have really heard or brought a lot of stories. And one thing I have just found out about these people is that they really do not want to mix, because for them it's more like atrocity, right? Because some of the stories that I have brought, like, you see a full grown woman telling you how right this is, probably their parents or their family, because it's usually their family, right? Are. And then there is something also that I have learned, like, when your family are that, you find out that you also start acting the way they are, not until you are grown or something you feel, then you start knowing that some certain things are right and some certain things are not right. The truth is that so many of them will never walk away from whiteness because that whiteness is something that they hold so close to their heart. Because tell me, sincerely speaking, I think it's just like really crazy, Let me just use it. Crazy how, like, a mother or a father will tell you that you are not supposed to watch, like, maybe a movie, black movie, or like, if it's not people that look like you are not supposed. That is like the weirdest thing I have heard. But some people are like that, right? And I don't know, but it's really mean, People, someone you haven't like even come in like someone you don't even know. It's just like maybe a black person knocking on a white person's house, like probably coming to see the daughter or something. Like you haven't even met the person, but you are already mad. Why? Just because the person probably does not look like you. I think it's like the craziest thing people would do, you know? And I cannot just imagine, like, I am just processing the whole thing. Like, I have nephew, I have niece, right? Probably walking up to them and telling them not to watch so cartoon because it's they don't look like you, or telling them you're not supposed to. I mean, it is really mean. It is like it's an ex. It's only an extremist that will do something like that. But all these are all happening. But then those that said that that are deconstructing. How are you deconstructing? Because it's in kind of really very, I don't know, it's in kind of weird that you are only deconstructing. What happened to your family? Those family that probably impacted that in you. Why are you not starting with them? Because I feel like you cannot completely deconstruct with the people. It's just like when your families are just like, weirdos, right? And you say you are deconstructing alone and you are not talking to them about some certain behaviors that they do towards other people, right? And some of the things they say, or your friends that you know that are the same, because some of them have the friends that they have that kind of mindset, that family have that kind of. What are you doing to stop that? What are you doing as a person to eradicate that? Because I see some of them are very they are so anxious to come out and talk about how they are deconstructing it without even talking about their and I do not even, some of them say they are deconstructing, but I do not even see them doing a lot of work or doing something to to make sure that some certain things don't spread or creating awareness. Because excuse me, I feel like their community need a lot of awareness. I don't know, but this is something that I have really been trying to wrap my head around, and I am not finding the right answer, you know. And that boils up, man. It is mean. It is mean, very mean, very very. But yeah, it is what it is. It's happening, and they are the ones saying it, not like I am saying it. For those that want to twist my words and say niacin is this, niacin is that, these are the stories people are sharing. I see a lot of people coming after me telling me that I am racist, and I am not. But I am bringing things happening because some people, it is affecting some people directly. People that look like me, it is affecting them directly. So how do you reduce all these pains and all this happening? By creating awareness, because it must be told. People also need to know. People are, my own people also need to know. Because what are we doing? We are changing the narrative, because the narrative they told, like the stories and the media push out, is quite different from what we are seeing. So they also need to know. And it's very important. So I am going to urge you people, I mean, your community, you all should go out and do the work. Let your deconstruction and allyship not just be a mere mouth, you know? And some of you rarely even post about it. So how do you want people around you to deconstruct? See you all in my next video. Bye for now.